He's really mature, but really combustible at the same time.
Maybe
and
it's
a little bit
he's
like,
just competitive.
but that's the thing, isn't it?
It's not like he's getting sent off every other week.
We start with the news, of course, that Wales lost 5-4 on pens to Poland after a 0-0 draw. Gutting. Absolutely gutting,
Yeah.
Andy. You were there, of course, for the semi-final playoff against Finland, and they're out.
I felt pretty
Well, they're
sure...
not out, they haven't qualified.
I felt pretty sure they would get past Poland, actually. I felt pretty sure they would qualify. And, looking back on that game in the cold light of day, I don't know if there's much that they really would or could have done differently.
I agree with you.
I thought it was a really good performance, really solid. Maybe that they lacked that little bit of quality, but it's interesting. Afterwards, the Poland coach was asked loads of questions on how bad Robert Lewandowski was,
Really?
which I think is quite an interesting way of framing something that they should be really happy with. Because when Mikel Arteta took over. I mean, he's been unbeaten since they've taken over, but they were really they were sinking. They weren't going to qualify.
Fernando Santos would have loved this, wouldn't he?
Would he have?
Yeah, and they didn't.
Extra time and penalties without being able to smoke. I don't think he would have done.
Well, firstly,
Get the patches out, Andy.
Yeah, he'd have been covered in patches, but also them not having a shot on target and going through.
Yeah, right. Fair enough.
Come on.
Fair enough. You got me there. You got me there.
The man won the Euros for crying out
Because
loud, and the Nations League. Have a bit of respect.
Poland. So I mean, if you look at it in the round, Poland's recent record in qualifying for tournaments is far better than Wales.
It
right?
is, yeah.
But they had a terrible qualification thing in quite an easy group, really. I mean, on paper, Albania won that group.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go into a European Championship qualifying. And you've got Albania, Czech Republic, Moldova, and Faroe Islands, and already the fact that the Euros is expanded anyway.
That's right. Yeah,
they should be qualifying.
It should
for
be
that with their eyes
impossible for
closed.
good teams to not qualify.
Yeah, that's the whole point of it. And so for them to go through this is kind of a little bit embarrassing for them, given how poor Santos was when he managed them. But I mean, I wonder whether it was quite an evenly matched game last night between two teams that could have won it. Both teams had chances.
Yeah.
Ben Davies was, a cigarette paper away from scoring, really. I mean, it was very, very narrow offside decision against him on VAR. And it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And it came down to one kick of a ball. It's hard for Wales to take, and they're not going to the Welsh fans aren't going to feel like that this morning, but it is really just one of those things, I think.
Well, I think, and what Andy said about what else could they have done, you saw that when Dan James misses the 10th penalty, and which is obviously the one that put them out. The Wales fans looked gutted, as you would expect them to look, but then there was applause. They recognised what the side had kind of done.
Yeah,
and because I think that's all you can do. I think you think about the start of their qualification campaign, it wasn't particularly inspiring. Okay, they got a bit of a smash and grab point in Croatia, I think it was, but they finished well in the group, but finishing third as well, there was still a bit of work to do, and. Rob Page is saying today, the group is in transition, but he's very excited. He wants to stay on. His contract is up until just beyond the 2026 World Cup. And you would think that they would stick with what they have, Vish, wouldn't you? Because Page, I think, he's done a good job. And there is an excitement. I mean, it would have been glorious for them to qualify, of course. But they seem to be despite... I know it seems ridiculous to say they seem to be, in good shakes, despite what happened last night. But I don't think that actually takes away from that point.
Well, especially given the conversation around Page at the start of the campaign, or certainly, when the campaign got going, was whether he was the right person to mould this young group of players. And evidently, he has been.
Yeah.
I suppose it depends. A lot depends on. How much the trust from the players translates to the trust of the people who, essentially at the Welsh FA. Because I feel like Page has shown enough to, I suppose, to get a crack at taking this team forward. And it does really feel like the team respond quite well to him.
Yeah, I think
Agreed.
so.
Agreed.
I think they've got such a good vibe.
Yeah, and, even little things like Andy was saying, having been to the semi-final against Finland, about how he felt they were keeping something in the back pocket. That was broadly quite a professional performance. I think I went into that game expecting them to be, blood and thunder and all the things you associate with, with
British football.
With British football primarily, yeah. and they weren't. They were very considered and just like letting the younger players off the leash without actually seemingly taking too many risks.
Uh-huh.
And that's how things felt yesterday against Poland. It felt like they stepped it up a notch against superior opposition to Finland. But yeah, that was broadly quite gutting. And I think what was good was the crowd reaction, as you said, the action from the players as well.
Yeah.
I think there was a real sense of
Yeah.
fuck, what more could we have done?
Yeah.
And I think coming out of that, where there was little resentment within the camp, is obviously a bonus. But at the same time, I did watch that game and get a little bit sad because Robert Lewandowski does look really old.
Well, Aaron Ramsey didn't even get on the pitch.
I know he didn't, but he was quite sweet actually. Around extra time, he was going around having little chats with people, which is very important.
Speaking of chats, Pete was really incensed on our WhatsApp about the Lewandowski penalty technique.
Yeah, I see where he's
wasn't
coming
he?
from.
I can see where he's coming from. It's funny because it's
So what happened, Andy?
so basically it's like a Paraginia, a little stop, but it isn't because he keeps moving.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's not actually against the law. It's very clever because it does fake out the goalkeeper, but it doesn't actually stop. Now, really, in the spirit of the game, it shouldn't be allowed. But I don't see how you don't allow it.
The level of choreography, the idea that he's workshopped that annoys me a little bit.
Does it?
I don't know why.
I'll tell you why. Because he's done like TikTok dances and stuff, and he looks ridiculous.
No, that's exactly
yeah,
it.
that's why.
exactly
He
it.
looks like a risible
Grow
character.
up.
Yeah,
What about Kiefer Moore's penalty where it hit the bar twice?
he didn't mean that.
Did he not?
That is margin.
Well, no.
He looks so relieved.
Did you see when he came back and I think he had Ben Davies on his arm and he came back and rejoined the line and you could tell he just went fucking hell.
Yeah. He looks
The
so
look on
relieved.
Page's
I think-
face
I
was
think he
something, wasn't
mouthed.
it?
I think he mouthed. I did not mean that.
Yeah.
Because on the penalty thing generally, what's kind of sometimes lost, I think, and we talked about this on the show before, where you talk about the idea that the whole reason a penalty kick exists is because it's to award an advantage to the attacking team.
Yeah.
Now this is a slightly different context because it's a shootout or a penalty competition, as Barry Davis would say.
Now you're talking.
But everything is stacked in favour of the person taking the kick anyway. The issue then becomes that the laws are now, in my view, so harsh on goalkeepers anyway, and the referees have been hot on it in recent seasons. Where you have to have some contact with the line, you can't take a step forward. I kind of feel like
Well, there was the little check after James missed. wasn't
exactly,
there?
and everyone was in the goal at that
Yeah.
point. That would have been an absolute shit show if he pulled that.
Yeah.
The
back.
best one
Yeah.
was David Marshall when he saved against Mitrovic
Yeah.
for the Scots to go through. He was like on tenterhooks. Is that good? Is
Yeah,
that good? He's like, I've got a massive celebration in me. I want to get out.
And the thing is, I feel like if you are going to do what Lewandowski did,
Yeah.
it almost feels like it should become fair game. The keeper should be able to move because
Yeah.
you're bringing
know-
that variable in.
But Luke,
Exactly.
you know what I thought though? That where keepers used to jump off the line and it was never penalised, and Pat Bonner used to love a bit of that.
Yeah,
Have you
Famously.
rewatched? Sorry, very quickly. Have you rewatched the 2005 Champions League final penalties?
Oh,
Is it
with
bad for that?
Dudek.
Dudek.
Yeah.
Basically picking the ball up off the spot.
Yeah, I was going to say, but that's the thing. Though,
There's some in World Cup 90 as well, which are ridiculous.
Well,
Two
well,
big steps off the
But
line.
that's what I mean, though. Like, so coming off your line, goalkeepers should have exploited that more. Because presumably, when the referee says right, you take it with blow the whistle or anything, surely it could be like a rugby charge.
Yeah.
Because they would just jump
yeah.
like a step or two off further forward,
You
man.
can do what you can.
Because you could come off your line.
Yeah, you could then.
They
Because-
all missed a trick.
Because then, I mean, at the same, I
Imagine
appreciate
that no penalties ever scored again.
Like it's just smothered.
We're going to have to rethink this.
people just kicking people in the
No, no,
box,
no.
being like, it's fine, the keeper's
No,
going to
because
save it.
a Penenga penalty would make sense. You dink
Yeah,
it over
over the
him.
top, yeah.
you see.
Mate,
Well, I suppose
maybe-
it would change. Like, obviously, they're not going to change the rules now, but I do quite like that as a way that strikers would just make an adjustment, or penalty takers would just make an adjustment. They'd make their run up shorter.
They would. They'd have to do one
What
step
about
penalty,
maybe
yeah.
in a shootout, you get an outfield player to assist you, but the opposition pick which outfield player, and he's still not allowed to use his
Well,
hands?
I am going to have to insist that you call it a penalty competition, Andy, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
yeah.
Right,
So it's
okay.
Tribute to the great Barry Davis. I would also look. We're getting way off the topic here, but just finally, the way you make penalties more interesting and put a bit more jeopardy in there is in regulation time or extra time. I'm not talking about a penalty competition. Outside of that, in the actual game itself, you instill a law that says whoever gets fouled for the penalty has to take it, and that makes it far more
like a free
interesting.
throw in basketball.
It makes it far more
Yeah.
interesting because
Yeah.
you haven't got a designated penalty taker. It also doesn't pump the stats, the goal scoring stats either.
Imagine if you had the equivalent of hack a shack in football, where you think,
You would.
let's deliberately foul that player
Hmm.
at a corner.
But yeah, I suppose.
Because they have to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
you were
the
still giving away a penalty though.
Yeah.
Were you doing it for the banter?
But it's all right, the keeper will sort it. We talked about that.
Well, look, back to Wales and Poland. when Dan James stepped up to take that 5th penalty, there was
Yeah.
a little bit of concern on the WhatsApp group for him.
And I think rightly so. It felt there's a feeling, isn't there? There's always a feeling, and sometimes maybe it's just that sometimes the feeling comes and we're wrong about it, so we instantly forget about it. But when there is a feeling, it kind of really lends itself to God. We all knew that was going to happen.
Because you think that was the end of the sort of, if you like, the regular penalty competition. We hadn't gone to sudden death there, and you think there's been 10.
But it effectively was sudden death at that point.
Yes.
Well, effectively, but by the letter of the penalty competition, it wasn't.
Yeah.
But he obviously needed to score. He didn't, and I just.
I suppose
when you have 9 kicks are taken and scored, and then you're the 10th one, I felt so
Pressure's high.
sorry.
Yeah,
for him.
it is. I suppose the thing is, I think Wales were just about better on the night, but Poland had the better goalkeeper and the better penalty takers.
And Poland was so cool when they
that's,
took the penalties.
That's the thing.
That's how you do it.
To do it in that atmosphere.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere at Cardiff is unbelievable. I cannot reiterate that enough, by the way. But I think when we go back to that, and going back to what you were saying before, Vish, and how I don't think those words from Rob Page are empty words. I think they really do have something to build on. Because they're, as I said on Friday, they're a much better team than they were at the World Cup in 2022.
Yeah, they were really disappointing.
They've got a fairly young core on the whole. They're not reliant on the 2 players that they've been reliant on for ages. Well, obviously, Ramsey's marginalised and Bale's gone. And you just felt in that atmosphere last night as well as the one on Thursday, the fact that what is a national team about? It's about all being united for one cause. And
he's about to do a Reece Evans.
Reece Evans, come on!
Those fans, stripped down to my pants. I think that
Can you hear
set
them,
of players,
boys?
that set of players and that set of fans could not be more united.
Yeah.
They embody what being a national team is about.
They have to capitalise on the recent momentum they've got. They went a huge amount of time, 58 through to whenever it was, 2016, not qualifying for anything, and now their record is actually very good for the relative size of their nation. Yeah. They can't
play like Northern Ireland.
They can't step back like this. They have to keep building. They have to maintain their confidence as best they can and try and go again.
Do you know what's fascinating? Here's a stat for you. It was the first time the Welsh men's team have been involved in competitive extra time. Isn't that incredible?
Not really, because they never qualified for anything.
Well,
historically.
You just talked about they have.
Yeah, they have recently.
In 2016, they went to a semi-final.
What I'm saying is there wouldn't be a massive sample size.
Okay, fine.
Compared to some bigger nations.
I thought it was
So I disagree. It's actually not an interesting.
All right.
We'll do a poll about that on Twitter.
Okay.
Was that an interesting statistic or not?
Yeah. Come on, Vish. I was about to move on, but you've dragged us back.
No, but I was going to say that, like, I think going forward, what Luke was saying there about, you can't take a backward step. I think their young players, almost prevent them from taking a backward step when you consider like 2 players in Ampadu who's got so much experience, only 23, and young Jordan James as well. That's basically their midfield too. So everything works. Everything's going to work around that. Harry Wilson's obviously stepped up a level as well and is a bit older, but that whole core is going to make sure that they don't.
They've got a
well, they can't take a backward step.
Yeah, exactly.
Is Connor Roberts Tash an attempt to add some seniority to the group?
I think rightly so.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, you can either, if you've got Tash, you can either be wing commander or you can be Leon off Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I think he's nearer the latter than the former.
Yeah, he needs some glasses.
It's a bit of a
as well.
cheeky one.
Yeah,
definitely.
Bit of a cheeky one. Of course, Georgia beat Greece on penalties
Amazing.
to reach their first ever major tournament in 15 attempts.
It's incredible.
How about that? And since the start of the Euros, there's always been a debutante at the tournament.
Oh, that's nice.
Which is quite something.
That's an interesting stat. There you go.
There we are. You see, I've managed to
wrestled it back
to prove my value once again. But I have to constantly prove it, though.
Yeah.
My favourite one's 2004 Latvia.
Yeah.
People forget
Marion
about that.
Pajas.
Marion.
Yeah. Scummer.
But yeah, well done to Georgia. They were there.
Kvaratskhelia is going to be at the tournament.
That's lovely.
Very exciting.
With all due respect to Georgia, that's the only thing I care about.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but just like that major tournament thing of having like a star player there.
Has he dragged them?
Disrespectful
I'm
to Georgia.
joking, Georgia.
It's the home of Joseph Stalin, for crying out loud.
For fuck's sake. And Kvaratskhelia, has he kind of dragged them kicking and screaming, or have they got some other good players as well?
Obviously,
I haven't seen him very often.
he's their standout. Yeah, but they do have other good players. I think you have to look out for Mika Tadze, who's on loan from Ajax to his old club Metz at the moment. He made a difference when he came on, I thought. And it was interesting because if you look at the extra time in Wales versus Poland, the weight of it was definitely on those two teams. Like nothing happened. If it had gone straight from 90 minutes to penalties, it wouldn't have made any difference. Whereas the last 20, 25 minutes in particular of the Georgia-Greece game were really cagey. And then they were like, "Whoa, it's extra time," and it was completely off the chain extra time. It was unbelievable, and it's surprising that we didn't get a goal in that before we got to the pens.
I like the fact that managing the Georgia side, Andy, is
Big
Willy
Willy
Sagnol.
Sagnol. Legend.
yeah. How about that?
Bayern Munich.
Very
Is he a Bayern
exciting.
Munich legend?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
big time, big
Yeah.
time.
for sure.
Yeah,
Mm.
great stuff.
Do-
I
do
actually
you
really
think-
pleased to see his name actually when I saw it come up.
And they will, of course, be the purveyors of the best bread at the tournament,
Ooh,
perhaps ahead of France and Turkey.
What's up with the egg in it and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, you can have that. Yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
you can have that. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you have that? Yeah, have a bit of
Well, what are
flour.
you talking
Allergic?
about then? Oh,
What have you got against the egg?
yeah, exactly.
The humble egg.
Well, what bread are you talking about then?
All sorts of bread they have available. It's incredible.
All right, but don't try the egg one. Well, we look forward to seeing Georgia and their St George's crosses at the tournament.
Yep.
Oh,
They outdo us with the St George's crosses. They got, what, 5 of them on the
Because
flag?
they don't mess around with it.
Right.
Well, they have them, though.
Yeah, massively.
Yeah.
They don't mess around with it. No, they put more of them up.
What's
Yeah.
that?
I think we're going to look at that and go, ooh, I thought we were the,
Imagine if England play Georgia.
how about that?
I think they should play them, and both teams
Mm.
should refuse to wear a chain strip to see who actually is the most powerful St George's cross.
Yeah,
They're-
because we can't play AC Milan or Barcelona.
No, quite
No.
exactly.
Exactly.
They're a proper. That's a turducken of a St.
It
George's
is,
cross,
it
isn't
is,
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's properly involved, isn't it?
There's a lot of countries where St George is very popular. That's how you
Yeah.
do it. He's just a populist, or
Yeah.
certainly feels like it at the moment. Anyway, sorry for the bollocks. Ukraine are through to Euro 2024 as well. That man Mudryk got a late winner to get them past Iceland.
And you've got to be pleased for Ukraine for all the obvious reasons. But there is a but here. I quite wanted Iceland to do well as well. I quite like Iceland too.
Not after what they did to us.
Well, no, but that's why. They've earned the right.
Nah,
They've earned the right.
they lost it then.
Yeah. Imagine,
They
Vic.
lost the right there.
How very dare you?
Yeah. Oh, you put your cross slightly to the side, then put us out of the tournament.
Yeah.
Imagine that game.
Made McLaren look a fool on Sky Sports News. You happy with yourself?
And there's a Roy Hodgson meme now as well,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Ah.
But imagine that being the first game that all of your new American in-laws watch with you at their house in America when you're trying to sell into them the idea of soccer.
Right.
You just imagine how I experienced that tournament. And everyone around was just so confused. Is this supposed to happen? Because a lot of them won't have even heard of
They
Iceland.
won't have done.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it was the kind of recent nadir of England's performance in football means that Iceland should probably get a free pass for the next 5 tournaments.
Well, we beat them in the Nations League,
We did.
so got the last laugh. But Andy, Ukraine are through. It's great for them.
Yeah, it's really great for them. And Mudryk to show up as well. I feel he's had a gently improving season,
Yes.
rather than an amazing one. But for him to grab that moment, he always seemed the player most likely to. Having said that, whatever you think of his form since he's joined Chelsea, he's one of the most accomplished knee sliders in football today. And he got it totally wrong when
He
he scored
botched
his
that.
winner,
He absolutely botched that. Yeah.
didn't he?
Is he out of practice, do you reckon?
I think it shows that the tension gets to you at these big moments.
It does, absolutely.
It's like
right.
pens, really, isn't
It
it?
is a bit, yeah.
It is a bit like pens. No, you're absolutely right. So so they are the final teams that qualified: Poland, Georgia, and Ukraine, of course. The aforementioned Latvia had a poor night. They drew 1-1 with Liechtenstein. Their defender, Marcus Oss, scored. Always nice to have one in there. Or is it he scored a ridiculous own goal after 14 seconds? I don't think it was his fault. I think it was the keeper.
It was a very acute angle.
Let's blame the keeper.
And I think the keeper should have covered that angle.
There you go.
Now, I don't think there's any. So those of you who haven't seen it, it's a passing mover from the kickoff. He's got the ball really on his own touchline,
Yeah.
to the left of the goal. Very acute angle, and he simply plays the ball to the goalkeeper. There's no reason at all the goalkeeper should be on the other side of the
No, it
goal.
looks like the goalkeeper's doing something else.
No, the goalkeeper
Yeah.
ran away, Andy. He
Well, no,
abandoned
no,
his post.
What does Joey Barton think about it? Ask Joey.
Why are you mentioning that dickhead?
It was a very modern football own goal.
It was.
Because we were talking about the Dixon Seaman own goal. From
Oh, it's
many
classic.
moons
Well,
ago.
he
Yeah.
loves him.
Yeah.
That's
Which,
amazing.
as you pointed out,
Yeah.
Seaman could have actually caught or pushed over the bar
'Cause it was before the pass
it
back
was the
rule.
year before the back pass rule
Do you
came in.
think David Seaman thought this is going straight on own goals and gaffs? Danny Baker. I'm doing
Can I
Danny Baker a solid
Can I
here.
just say, even if there is a back pass rule, just save it.
Yeah.
Deal with the rest of it later.
I
Seaman
know.
probably thought, I probably don't need to practice these really.
This will never
back,
happen again.
back pass rules coming in next year, so this won't happen again.
Yeah.
He had a fine career.
A fantastic career.
Yeah, but that was a.
He's probably in
bad
the
moment.
ponytail 11.
I'd hope
Oh,
so.
you'd hope so. I mean, it's very, very tough to think of the possible exception, Andy, bringing you in here. Possible exception of Rushdu Rekba.
Okay.
Did he have a ponytail at one point?
Yeah.
I think he did.
He's not a bit top knot. Was he? Did he ever have a top knot?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Wait.
But he's
I'm
not
gonna
better
say-
keeper than Seaman, though.
I'm going to
No,
say a
he's not.
name that you haven't heard for donkeys.
Go on.
Tony Miola.
Miola's not a better goalkeeper than David Seaman.
But he got a ponytail.
So
Well,
he's
wasn't he
so
merely
there's his third
mulleted?
choice.
What is he? What?
Wasn't he merely mulleted?
Nonsense, poopy pants.
Yeah.
Tony Miola had a ponytail, and I'm quite sure he played in the sticks for the US in the '94 World
He
Cup.
did.
Yeah,
He
he did,
absolutely
yeah.
did. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how we all know who he is. Yeah.
There we are. you see.
But
Yeah.
like bottom
Seaman
line
didn't
is
play at that
without even without even looking at it, we know the 11's going to have Seaman in goal and Tom Eaves up front.
Not Andy Carroll.
Oh yeah, see, that's why a Discord's the place to be.
Get on the
You
Discord.
can get involved in these kind of
Are you saying
conversations.
no to 2 up front?
Okay, you go.
Oh,
Not now.
Marcus, selling out your Englishness. I'm disgusted.
That's nonsense.
Disgusted.
I'm not saying no to 2 up front. I'm
Disgusted.
saying I want a little man up there with him.
And so you can't be truly English if they're both going to be big lads. You need to have a big man, little man.
Exactly, yeah.
Get Michael Owen a ponytail.
Remember your
Now.
heritage.
Remember your heritage.
Sometimes I don't even know you.
Marcus thinks ponytails are foreign muck anyway.
Dear. Right, coming up in the second half. Of course, we've got England. Don't worry, we haven't forgotten about it.
No.
What else have we got? Oh, Scotland and but the new Riverside stand at Fulham is going to open
Somehow in the second half of this show, we're talking about Fulham opening a new stand.
Show some fucking respect.
To run and does. Can he play a colleague through? It's Jacob Murphy released. Murphy one-on-one. Jacob Murphy to win it. Oh, just put it in the net!
Welcome back to the Football Ramble, everybody. Nice to hear that again. England 2, Belgium 2.
Yeah.
Well, those Belgians were lucky to get a draw, weren't they?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Who
that's-
do they think they are?
I know.
I'll tell you
They're
what.
a proper country.
Do you know what? I was thinking.
You're going to cancel your Tintin kit, mate. Have you read some of the older books?
I respect the kit. I do respect the kit.
Okay.
Respect the shirt, don't respect the shorts. Come on.
Shorts should be longer.
Shorts
Yeah.
were shocking. I was thinking to myself, when you watch a game like this and you think, okay, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. A bit like with Wales, you start to form maybe some opinions. What we're going to say. And I heard Jude Bellingham do his post-match interview, and I thought, yeah, he's kind of summed it up all there.
Yeah.
He's like, well, one of the reasons why I'm glad I scored is just because some of the stuff that will be written about has hopefully put some of that to bed. It'll be different come the Euros. Don't worry, everybody. We'll be
Yeah.
more focused. Playing with a lot of new lads, but they did pretty well. But yeah, delighted to score. And I thought, there we are. We'll go over.
I think Jude should be the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
He would
I
be
agree.
unequivocally better than what we've had for the last, I
100%.
don't know how long.
But isn't it funny that he chose to hone in on that for his first comment when actually he doesn't have to put up with any of it? But
He loves
almost
it, Andy.
all of his senior career has been
Yeah, but
played
Andy,
abroad.
I'll tell you why, because he's on a plane to Madrid tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
So he doesn't have to, read all that kind
There's a
of
lot
crap.
to be said for that.
No, I think, but you're right. I think without sort of being silly, I think that he even like kind of checked himself when he was talking about some of the younger lads, and he went, "Oh, here I am talking like one of the older heads." But he is.
You are, yeah.
It is like we've known this guy for 10 years. and-
Seniority is not really about age.
No, exactly.
Well, certainly not when it comes to him. But missed a couple of chances, as we know. But I was delighted for him. And what I loved about Bellingham is we talked about a bit of needle and so on. I forget who it was. The player was it Anana?
It was Anana, yeah.
Yeah, after the game, because there was a bit of
There was a lot during the game.
there was quite a lot
Yeah.
during the game, and after the game, Anana went over to him, and you could just hear Bellingham shaking his hand and really just calmly going, "Oh, by the way, behave yourself," as if he was like his teacher. Do you know what I mean?
Class. It's absolute class.
Yeah, and then Anana was sort of like smiling, going, come on. And he was just like, no, seriously, right? None of that.
Do you not remember during
Come the summer, none of it.
Do you not remember during El Clasico when I can't remember who it was, but he basically was there was a lot of back and forth in during the break and play, and he was towering over. I want to say it was Pedri, but maybe it wasn't. And basically just going, "Oi, show some respect." And because he's so
Is it more impressive than when Phil Neville does it?
but it was almost like it was almost like
Sorry,
you know,
what was the
I
question?
know. I was like, I know what you're like. Stop it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what his post match was. He was saying he was turning to the camera to the nation. Look, I know what you're like.
Yep.
Fucking calm down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's 2-2. I've done it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I'll be back in a couple of months. Sort yourselves out.
Do you know what? It's a bit Brian Clough-esque.
Yeah.
Do you know like Clough would walk around as if he owned the place
Yeah.
and would just talk to people and be like, "No, you're not doing that here," and that.
But going
There's
back
an element of it.
Going back to what you guys were talking about on Monday, though, I do think, obviously he's perfect in so many ways, and it's
Is there a danger he
it's
goes too
delightful.
far with this?
a big danger.
Yeah, no, I do agree.
What, more
The thing
perfect?
is, yeah, the thing is that the chip the chat to the refs that you were talking about on Monday, Vish, and the really getting wound up by players he shouldn't get wound up by. It happens on a weekly basis now, and it's got worse and worse over the last couple of months. Interestingly,
a mate of mine's planning to have a bet on him getting sent off in a knockout game for England.
That's how the narrative goes.
I could see that because you go back to when he was at Dortmund, and a couple of his senior teammates, Emre Can actually was one of them, said like publicly, he's got to wind it in.
Yeah,
and it's actually escalated.
Do you think people in Real Madrid are telling him to wind it in or wind it up?
Yeah.
Well, I remember I was at the second leg of the Dortmund Rangers game in Glasgow, and obviously Rangers ended up winning the tie. But he was furious to the extent that even in that atmosphere, you could hear him shouting at his players, like remonstrating stuff like that. And I get that as like a competitive younger player, but I'm also not that worried about it.
Well, I think for England, I think he's aware of the playing for your country and the kind of the nature of all that kind of stuff. So I'd be surprised if he goes over the top. I mean, again, when Harry Kane misses that penalty against France in the World Cup, he's the only player on the England on the pitch. Well, obviously, why would the French do this? But he's the only player to go over and console him and go, right, come on, head up, son. Let's get going. Not even, I talk about Jordan Henderson's leadership. Not even Henderson did that. Harry Kane's just missed a crucial thing. There's still time to save.
But this is the juxtaposition of Bellingham, isn't it? That he's really mature but really combustible at the same time.
Maybe
and it's a little bit like
competitive.
But that's the thing, isn't it? It's just like Rooney. You can't actually take that away from him.
I think he's different than Rooney. I think Rooney.
No, I'm not saying they're the same person. I'm saying the thing that is similar is you can't have one without the other.
Okay, fair.
That's the thing.
I was going to say that people never said that about Roy Keane. Roy Keane was like that
because they were scared to.
Well, fair enough. But
yes,
Bellingham's got a lot of development to go anyway. And you're talking about a player who, and Andy, you might disagree, but he's if I said he's the best player in the world, it's not a terrible shout.
All right.
It's not outrageous. No.
Answer me this. Do you take him to the Euros?
So
let's talk about England.
Should he start above Kobe Mainoo is a question.
Well,
that's your question.
Yeah. He's the best player in the world, and you watch him, and everything he does is not only brilliant. There's no real weakness to his game. You guys talk about his temperament. Maybe through one lens, that's a weakness, and maybe.
Well, look, we've talked. Well,
hang on.
All right.
And everything he does is so effortless. He never even looks out of breath. Like there's nothing else. There's nothing he can't do. And I think that edge he's got. I feel like I'm kind of more on Vicious' side of the fence, chiefly because I feel like if England come up against a really good team in the Euro knockout stages, and they're experienced, and maybe it is like a France who've won stuff and they've got a load of good players. I don't want England to be bullied.
No,
you're
right.
And he's not going to let England be bullied. And I think that's a really important thing, particularly in that area of the pitch. It's really important to make sure you're not bullied about that sort of stuff. And what we need to make sure is that we make sure that he's channeling it in the right way. And I don't think anyone here can really assess fully whether he is or not. You can say, I watched him live in person and he got really angry. Well, so fucking what? It doesn't matter. He's had, one red card this year in the Liga? That's it. It's not like he's getting sent off every other week.
Yeah.
He's not like a Stefan Effenberg type character.
Madison's more likely to get sent off for chatting to the referee.
Everyone's got it in them to have that.
Yeah.
And I just think we really want to be just careful just to understand that it's a massive blessing to have him.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
What was Luke saying about United about England not being bullied in those big moments? I think yesterday it was ripe for that because it was almost a pathetic fallacy, wasn't it, in terms of the rain, the mistakes. There was like echoes of McLaren's last game against Croatia when England failed to qualify there. Keegan's last game against Germany, like two real dud nights at Wembley.
Blimey, I'm really glad I watched it on my own now.
But Pickford makes that mistake. The driving rain, the fact that England get quite desperate at the end of the game and still pull through, and I think a lot of that comes from Bellingham's competitiveness. The idea that I know this is a friendly, but come on, we
also Vish. Also to extrapolate on that, you're absolutely right. To extrapolate on that, England have got out of jail at home against Belgium in a friendly. Belgium are a good team. Probably not the best version of them we've seen in recent years, but they're a good team. Got good players. England haven't won the game because Pickford's made an error and Lewis Dunk shit his pants. And we're talking about Jude Bellingham's temperament.
You'd want the Belgium shorts if you're going to shit your pants.
Absolutely, it's easier, much easier.
Yeah.
But Lewis Dunk essentially filled his pants as soon as Romelu Lukaku came anywhere near him.
Because you remember what happened against Roma.
And you know, exactly. And you know what? that is a bit of a worry because we're not great at centre back,
Well, I said
and
this
we
against
need
Brazil.
we need someone to be able to do that.
I saw Dunk. And look, Dunk is a good player, and again to single people out, and waking up this morning, England fans will feel a little bit better. To be one of the guys who's in that narrative of that was some much better attacking play, a bit more fluid, and Mainu and all these players, and go but that guy though, and that's what Dunk will be feeling today. But I did say against Brazil, rather, seeing him it really kind of stood out, like how kind of slow he is. And, people have slagged off Maguire, and I understand why he's had his critics, don't get me wrong. But what are people, or certainly some of the journalists saying now, Maguire's spot safe and so on. Again, that shows you the defensive frailties England have. But lesser sides with lesser attacking talent have won tournaments. We talk about Santos, look at Portugal. Who did they have at the back? Was it José Font and Pepe?
Yeah.
Yeah,
now, Pepe's obviously, a great player and so on. But, José Font at the back, people wouldn't have thought that.
Scummer.
In this. Another one.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a missed opportunity for Jared Branthwaite?
No, because
Bit soon, maybe.
Well, this is.
I don't know.
But this is how it goes, Vish. The injuries that Southgate was bemoaning, and rightly so, I think are a blessing, because without those injuries, Mainu's not going to the Euros. Mainu is probably starting for England now.
Yeah.
And if he isn't, why the bloody hell is he not?
Mm.
So and that doesn't happen because of the injuries. Cole Palmer will feel a bit kind of like, if I'd have maybe got a chance. But the fact is, Bowen, has taken his chance, you would say.
It's not massively pressing for England, is
No,
it?
exactly, yeah. I feel like Cole Palmer is going, but Jared Bowen is the one that Southgate needed to see something from. I don't know that Cole Palmer would have told Southgate anything that we don't already know from his body of work so far this season.
Yeah, but I think people call these auditions, and understandably, if you're an international manager, sometimes you get a flavour of someone, sometimes you don't, and sometimes you just think, I'm not sure that they're going to recreate their club form. Now, Palmer's clearly a better player, and he will play in an England shirt, certainly in future. If it's not this summer, he will get there. But you've got to make big decisions, and sometimes the sample size isn't huge. And it's a bit like trials, when you go for trials for your county or whatever when you're younger, if people have done that. You don't play well, and it's kind of like, well, sorry, mate, but you had your chance. But that may seem very harsh, Andy, but that is a little bit of being an international manager.
Bowen's much more worthwhile for this tournament, I think. Okay, Palmer.
It's not Bowen's first start for England.
Palmer might have the longer England career.
Yeah.
But if you're Southgate, I think you'd definitely take in Bowen. If it's a choice between
Really?
Bowen and Palmer, yeah, he's more adaptable.
Back up for Saka.
And the idea is, I think if you look at, and he can play a centre forward if you need him.
Yeah. That's where he mostly plays for West Ham.
Yeah, exactly. There are so many options. He's an incredibly intelligent and much more experienced player. And I think with Palmer, there's still that sense, a little bit like there was at Manchester City with England, of he's fantastic, but where do we put him? Like with Chelsea, it's obvious because he's head and shoulders above everyone else around him. But if we move on to like the more collective conclusions that you would draw from this,
yes.
I thought England were really good in this against a Belgium side that, as Luke hinted at, are much better than people think. And I think there'll be an interesting one to watch when it comes to this tournament. But the way that England recovered from those slip-ups, and there's no getting around the fact they conceded 2 really bad goals, but they didn't let it knock them off course. I thought they continued to play really, really well. It was a much better performance than the one against Brazil, which was really stodgy and awful. But I guess it just does come back to the defensive thing, because they could have conceded more last night. They could have conceded 4 against Brazil, 3 or 4 against Brazil.
You're right. Do you think, though, with the defensive sort of frailties or whatever, obviously, again, they didn't have some starters in there, but people have said, Southgate, take the handbrake off, and a lot of people don't like Southgate, or they've had enough of whatever, and they're saying he's undermanaged. All the criticism. Well, actually, last night the handbrake was well off.
Yeah,
they were
because
attacking.
Foden got to do what he wanted, especially in the second half, and he was really good.
Yeah, spot on. He was so good in that second half.
Exactly. You didn't have a sort of a kind of a hurrier or whatever you want to call Gallagher, even though Gallagher's more of an attacking player. You didn't have anything. You had Mainu in there, who provided some lovely moments and flair. But if England try and do that, they're going to want to press teams high up the pitch. This is what we see good teams do, right? You press them high. That leaves them exposed at the back. They don't have a lot of pace at the back.
Absolutely. So
what do you want, kind of thing?
The short answer to this is the 2 games against Belgium and Brazil, particularly the game against Brazil, but also the game last night, is a great example to people who love England, who don't really know that much about football, and who are those guys. The crossover between those types of people and the criticism of Southgate will be quite a big part of a Venn diagram. You use these two games as an example and say, if you want England to play as you keep insisting you want them to play, this is basically what's going to happen against good teams.
Yeah.
Because you can talk about England potentially conceding 3 or 4 against Brazil. The facts are that according to Opta, against Brazil, playing in that much more expansive way, understanding he wants to try things, but they played in an expansive way against Brazil, who are a team roughly commensurate with a team who's going to go deep in an international tournament because they're Brazil, and they gave up more key chances, more big chances, Opta defines as a big chance, than any other game in Gareth Southgate's tenure as England manager.
Well, and in total, in the whole, you take the whole of the World Cup campaign.
So the reason they play with this kind of much more thoughtful, you call it handbrake on if you want or whatever, is because Southgate knows, from kind of quite painful experience now, the margins are so fine. And if you open yourself up, you might win. You might go. It's almost a bit like a boxer who's really good on the. It's like a Floyd Mayweather who's the most amazing defensive boxer you'd ever would have seen. Deciding to go in the middle of the ring toe to toe with a banger, with like a flat-footed knockout artist banger. He would never do that because he's got a far. He might not lose, but he's got a far bigger chance of losing. And in football, it's the same kind of thing. It's one team wins and one team doesn't in international knockout football, and England need to play to their strengths. You can sit there all you like crying into your pint that England aren't, 1970 Brazil, but football isn't like that now. England don't have players like that.
I guess the question is, can they actually play how Southgate wants them to? Which I think is reasonable, by the way, to defend and use your quality in sparing moments. I think that's fine. I think that's quite a sensible way to win a tournament. And I think if you go back over the history of international tournaments over the last 20 plus years, that is generally how tournaments are won. Okay, maybe football's evolving a bit, and that's a different discussion. But what I do think is we can talk about the defensive personnel. The lack of Phillips or a Phillips is a really huge problem, because what we're doing is we're saying, well, it has to be Declan Rice +1. But why has Declan Rice been one of the best players in the Premier League, if not the best player in the Premier League? Because he's basically an 8 this season. And we want him to play as a 6, even though he's been phenomenal as an 8.
Well, where I come from, a 6 is a 4, by the way. I don't know when it became a 6.
I just think numerically.
We're going to talk numbers. Let's talk numbers.
Inflation.
It was always a 4 till about 10 years ago. It is inflation.
I think there's an answer to that, and that's you are in a particular moment.
Exactly. Everyone. That's what everyone says. But in Europe, they call it a 6, right? That's basically why. Okay, fine.
But do you not feel, though, and I agree with you, that Mainoo is possibly the answer to this?
So, but does this not touch on what we said when he got called up in terms of, people had a bit of a pop at us, understandably so, because they felt we were like pouring cold water.
It's never understandable.
On a very
people have a pop at us. Have some respect.
Well, we were just
press the button.
Yeah, okay. And that's aimed at all of you listening to this podcast. But thank you for listening. And we
grafted in here. We're grafting.
But thank you for listening, and please continue to listen.
Pay us a fiver, and you can listen to the bit where we don't insult you.
But that's not a guarantee from me.
No,
I'm not guaranteeing that.
But we were slightly tentative. I think rightly so, because we were like, obviously it's a great news story. And it's a great story for Mainoo himself, but going into this, who knows, because he's going to play a different position. And my thought was he would actually, his future is further forward, which is actually the position he played last night.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because it was driving a bit more. There was a lovely bit of interplay with Tony on the left in a counter attack, which was
for the penalty.
Yeah, and
the way he turns and gets out of those tight spaces,
wonderful.
We don't have anybody else like that, maybe apart from Bellingham.
But then we also saw the other side of it, which is what we were talking about, in that we wanted someone. Kind of want someone who shields and allows Rice to be Rice as well here, because of how error-strewn England can be at the back in those, as Luke says, in those finer moments. And I suppose that's I left that game yesterday thinking that is a midfield 3. If I was playing FIFA tomorrow, totally, that is my midfield 3. If it's not my job, that's my midfield 3. But I think we also saw why Southgate might be a bit reticent to do that.
And I feel like we should mention, there's a couple of things I want to mention off the back of this. Like, I want to mention Tony, who did a really good job of targeting Jan Vertonghen, who is not an improving player and looks very, very slow on the turn now. And Tony was not only able to link up well, but he won that penalty for himself. It was an intelligent run off the back of a...
So can he?
Yeah, it was an intelligent run off the back of what looks like a shot defender. And he took the penalty himself, obviously, and scored it, which is important because that's really basically what Kane does in a nutshell. So I thought he was good, and I was quite harsh on him when comparing him to Watkins. And I think fairly.
You weren't harsh on him. I think you were promoting Watkins.
Season.
You thought Watkins should be given a chance.
But on the errors, this is why this is potentially going to be a problem, because we can talk about systemic stuff all the time, and you talk about how Guardiola approaches things with Man City across a 55-game season, with the exception of kind of knockout stages in the Champions League. But even then, not the majority of them are 2 legs. Like, it's not as stakes aren't as high. Guardiola will make an assessment and a calculation. He'll say, "I'll accept Edison or whoever it is making X amount of errors per season because it's the price of doing business."
Yes.
You can't have the price of doing business at a knockout tournament at international level. And the concern with not just Dunk but Pickford as well is that error last night was just fucking moronic. There's no pressure on him. Like, it's not like he's been hounded and harried and he's been under it for ages. He's under the
Are
pump.
we talking about the Pickford one?
Yeah. I think launches it, and the technique to launch that ball like that, given that one of his unique selling points is how good he is with his feet, I just thought was really, really poor.
I think the weird thing about that is not the error, but the way he didn't respond to it. And it almost felt to me like Tielemans was expecting that reaction. And he's like, right, if I keep a calm head here, I've scored. Because it's a really, really good finish, like putting it back to where he's coming from. But you wonder, because Pickford reacts in quite a wired way to mistakes.
It looked like a glitch. It looked like a video game glitch.
He's mad.
Honestly, that's controller out the window stuff. If that happens to you.
He's mad.
But who do you put in for him? He will be England's number 1.
That's what I'm saying, but it's still a concern. Sure. That's why it's a concern.
Yeah, but again, I think when Bellingham says, come the tournament, I wouldn't worry about Pickford just because of his previous in tournaments for England. But, he still
he
did that.
does. I think that is, whenever we have the conversation about Pickford, I think that is something we should always remember. Like, in tournaments, he has been outstanding. And there's almost a sense of, and maybe Everton fans might be a bit annoyed by this, and I suppose the fans who were supporting England last night, but there is almost a sense of like, right, I'm going to cut out some of that stuff now.
Yeah, I know what you
Little
mean.
reminder for him.
Yeah. Well, look, Luke and I will be back tomorrow for a special England episode where we'll be reviewing our England starting 11 for the Euros, answering your questions and seeing if you listeners trust Gareth Southgate to get the best out of the team in the summer. So get that tomorrow in your podcast app, and of course follow us on Spotify so you never miss an episode. So more England chat coming your way. But for now, on this Wednesday edition of the Football Ramble, we're going to move on to Scotland 0, Northern Ireland 1. Scotland now winless in 7. Look pretty toothless here. And there were boos at half-time and full-time, which I think's a bit piss poor from the Tartan Army, if I'm honest with you.
It's funny, isn't it, how we looked at maybe some England fans, some France fans overreacting to friendlies at this really difficult point of the season. And they've got Scotland fans doing it as well.
Oh, they've taken it to
I mean, the weird thing, they actually played all right in Amsterdam, didn't they?
Yeah, well,
despite ending up getting battered in that game, obviously.
So, yeah, I mean, I would have liked you to have confronted them, Andy, and said, why are you booing a 4-0 loss? And see how you got on there. But I think that you can see, look, what Steve Clarke's done. He's done a great job. They've qualified again. They're in the UEFA Nations League A category now. The progression is so clear how they've done it. I understand it's a bit annoying, but to boo them at half-time and full-time like that, and it wasn't just a smattering of boos. I was just a bit like, come on, lads.
The way they come out the traps in the qualifying campaign, you've set a standard that you're never going to be able to maintain.
Now, obviously, Northern Ireland are not one of the top nations when it comes to football. Although today they were the only side in the UK who won last night, by the way. But looking at the bigger picture, if I can, we listed off the teams that they've played recently. In their last sort of 7 games. The Dutch, they played, what was it, France, England, Spain. I understand it's disappointing, but I just think...
So I think there's a feeling, and they have played some good teams, and Andy, it's a totally cerebral point to make that you can play quite well and lose 4-0. I mean, ultimately, it's academic. I mean,
Frank Lampard over there.
It's academic. It's academic in a tournament, but these are preparation games.
Yeah, I think that there was.
But how do you play well and lose 4-0?
Well, did you watch the game?
No, I didn't watch the game. That's what I'm asking.
I said they played fairly well.
They created chances. They should have scored.
Up until 2-0, they were well into it, and that was like in the last 15 minutes. They were really good for the first 75 minutes.
Fair enough. The point I just want to make on Scotland's a more general point is that bit of inertia there to me. It feels like it's a massive effort to qualify for a tournament. They've done it well, and then naturally, it's almost a bit like trying to defend a title win. You get a little bit of you settle in, you get a little bit kind of complacent.
But I don't think it is complacency, because I think there was plenty, like, as Andy's saying, they were full of energy. They were full of pressing. It was that cutting edge to put away some chances. Maybe lacking a bit of focus, you could argue, but I don't think it's. I wouldn't have said it was inertia personally.
I think they're in a weird little space now where the mistakes they're making, whether it's their lack of cutting edge up front or this weird propensity to shoot themselves in the foot. Like Patterson yesterday when he tried to flick the ball between two Northern Ireland players in his own box. There is a short-term familiarity about it, which is why they boo, which is like, oh, for fuck's sake, not again.
It's us again kind of thing.
Yeah.
Feeling.
Why
yeah,
do we keep doing this?
Yeah, I understand that.
Well,
I think it comes from, because there's no other way of you can't just
What
you know,
tutting? You
there's
could
no
tut.
other, you can't
Have a
tut.
whole
They're not
stadium.
tutters.
They are tutters.
They're not tutters.
They are.
Listen,
No,
what you got to understand
they're
is
fannies.
if Scotland,
You're not fannies.
if Scotland play badly and lose, Speller will stick the boot in, and then he'll disappear off Twitter for a week until there's a couple of shows more under his belt. It's all forgotten about. He just likes to drive by Scotland sometimes.
I'm not having a go at Scotland. I'm having a go at the fans.
Oh, in which case I apologise.
And
Pissing it down. They pay to go. What are you booing for?
Hey, get Moyes in.
Yeah.
sing the wee song you did last year.
Exactly.
So Andy's point about this is a working out period. They're playing big teams. These are almost fixtures by design, really, to to push themselves to the next level. What they do need, though, is a bit of inspiration, as we saw with Wales. Just get your most famous available,
There you go.
countryman to have a word.
Who's that?
What's Connery up to
Yeah.
between now and the Euros?
He's dead.
Sean Connery.
Is he dead?
He died ages
What's
ago.
Connery up to?
Shit.
By the way,
Alan Brazil
don't
in the corner,
think for
yeah.
a single second we're editing that
No
out.
way.
No
No
way
way.
we're editing that out. Vish, I'm very, very sad to break this news to you, but it has been some time now. Sean Connery's dead. What's Mary Queen of Scots up to? What's James? What's William of Orange up
In my
to?
defence,
No, we are editing that out.
in my defence,
What's Sir
you
Walter
bring
Scott
it.
up to? Where's
In my
Wallace?
defence,
Where is he?
You lot bring him up so often.
Oi,
I
in
just
his-
assumed he's still
It's
alive.
a tribute.
It was never a tribute.
They could put Robert Burns up front. Oh my God!
Wait, sorry, can you...
Connery, if you're listening,
Sorry about that.
In his defence, in Vish's defence,
Yeah.
every now and then I say Junior. And obviously that made you think he was still alive.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what these news headlines are doing, but,
Yeah.
I only found out-
I had a Connery impression earlier, and if that doesn't mean he's alive,
I
don't know
only
what is.
realised last week that Oasis are technically not together again.
No, they're not.
back together because your man's playing at Ali Pali with the high flying birds. Is it?
If you want, yeah.
Don't try and deflect.
No, I'm just saying. It's just.
Who else?
I'm blaming. I'm putting it on you.
Who else do you think's alive?
Who else do you keep
what
going on
other
about?
what other former Bonds do you think are alive?
It is true though, because I've
No,
heard
Daniel Craig died in the last one, so you can't get me there.
Ah, spoilers!
I've heard they are adding Rob Roy McGregor to the coaching team ahead of the summer. So fingers crossed that'll have an effect.
When did Sean Connery die?
Oh dear, in the past.
Yeah.
It was definitely in the past.
Sean Connery died.
Fucking hell, 4 years ago.
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
31st of October.
Rescue this back,
Halloween.
Marcus. Vish is having an absolute western.
I really have to say this as well, just in case it. But Craig Brown is also not with us anymore.
Why did you mention that?
Yeah, I just wanted you to bring you up to speed with
Yeah.
the people who I do impressions of.
Yeah,
I'll just Google Scottish people who are dead.
Nick Hewer is fine at the
He's
time
still
of
alive.
recording,
He's
yeah.
still alive.
He's not Scottish. Oh, Marcus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had a fucking lobotomy. Who's lobotomised Vish? Just tell me who it is. Own up to it, and you won't be in trouble.
You'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
It was a great win for Northern Ireland.
Robbie
that.
Coltrane's dead.
Yeah, we know.
Sorry.
We know. We read the fucking news. You're one of the only journalists in here.
Hey, what about Nuns on the Run though? Eh?
Yeah, classic.
Come on,
Classic.
get the
Absolute
title and work
classic.
backwards.
Yeah.
Great win for Northern Ireland.
It was a great win for them. And I feel like Northern Irish fans listening to this will be very, very pleased with the coverage of this.
Incredibly pleased.
We've really congratulated them as much as we possibly could.
We
yeah.
could.
Chick Young's still alive, so
yeah.
you can do it.
Of course he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Which Chick Young? Because there was two.
The
There was a
journalist.
fan that he met once.
Talking shite again.
Oh dear. Yeah. Right. Should we talk about Fulham's new stand, or should we?
No.
No.
I think
The
we
answer
all,
before was no, and the answer now is still no.
come on. I think we all need a dip and to cool off here.
Yeah, we do.
Well,
Absolutely.
Andy, they will accommodate that. So Fulham's new Riverside Stand will officially be open in April after a decade in the making, and of course,
Can't
there's
rush these things, can you?
there's a smattering of fans in there.
Yeah.
Which did confuse, as I said the other week on the Ramble, a South African gentleman sitting behind me once asking me why it wasn't open, and then getting a bit annoyed that I didn't know the answer.
And the collective noun for a bunch of Fulham fans is definitely a smattering.
A smattering,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
A gaggle of Fulham fans
Yeah.
have been up there.
A parliament of Fulham fans.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. So it will feature a Michelin star restaurant.
Which I'm concerned about because I
Or
don't know-
restaurants, because you've got, either end of the
How have
stand.
they got an inspection so quickly to have a Michelin star? It must be the chef they've hired.
Yeah, who's bringing their star?
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
question.
You just stick a picture of the Michelin man up there and you're
That's
away.
all you got to do, is it?
That's all you got to do.
Bloody hell, I'll tell
apparently.
the cafe down the road about that.
You've got bars and terraces, tickets that you can sit directly behind the coaching staff, so you can feel like you're the manager.
That's every stadium, though, isn't it? That is
Yeah.
every stadium.
Yeah, but like this is more directly behind.
You can sit about a foot. There was a bunch of.
You can make a sub.
You can do that at Loftus Road now.
Yeah.
You can make a sub though if you pay the upper bracket.
Or do you know when they turn around, they tell one of the people on the bench to warm up? You can pretend that's you.
You know what? If that was the case, I would pay the no doubt very high fee for this. After a minute of play, Tom Kearney's coming on.
I love that you thought about saying exorbitant there, but you sacked it off.
Yeah, I thought it was-
Isn't this the concern really? You mentioned QPR here. This idea of getting a certain scale of London club they tried that before, didn't they? The sort of boutique football experience.
Yeah.
Because what I hear obviously-
QPR.
Yeah, they did. Flavio Briatore tried to do
Yeah.
that, didn't
I
he?
love the fact that they could make Loftus Road into some sort of boutique experience.
Tried, as I say,
It's a
tried.
great place to watch football.
but-
It is, but it's
not
not
for that reason.
No
no,
way.
no, but I think past all the headlines, the issue that really needs to be addressed, if they're going to be charging people through the nose for this unique hospitality experience, is there going to be a drip down to normal fans who are being charged a lot of
Well,
money
Andy,
to
you
get
hope
in?
not, because they will have a swimming pool, and if it's dripping down, then it's all gone wrong. Their next home game is against Newcastle in April, and the Newcastle fans, I'm sure, will be very, very interested to know how all this works.
Surely you want to have Alexander Mitrovic to open the stand officially. He's played for both sides. He's
I-
a classic fit.
I would want that.
Yeah.
But
And then
Mitrovic probably
Rodrigo
doesn't.
Muniz to 2-foot him.
Yeah, but
So
if,
I'm-
if
I mean, the
fucking-
Geordies got their shirts off already, haven't they?
they're
So-
all ready for it.
Yeah,
They're already for it.
Rodrigo Muniz to be like Ray Winston in the film Scum with like a snooker ball and a sock. Smash Mitrovic to bits.
What a terrifying reference.
How many
Blimey.
of those people are dead in that reference?
That's not now. We're not doing that.
Are we talking before or after the snooker ball attack?
Oh, yeah, good point.
Yeah, in the film, awful business. Let's end there quickly. Thank you very much for listening to the Football Ramble, part of the Acast Creator Network. Patreon subscribers, don't go anywhere. Keep listening for Ramble Uncut, where we're all going to pile in the Fulham swimming pool, so to speak. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, sign up to get Ramble Uncut every Wednesday. Head over to patreon.com/Football Ramble. Do follow us on Twitter, which is called X. Don't disrespect the Musketeer. TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at Football Ramble, and follow us on Spotify. Thank you, Luke.
Thanks.
Thank you, Vish.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jude. We'll see you tomorrow.
Cheers for watching another fantastic clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Make sure you click like on this video and subscribe to the channel, which means you will not miss a single upload.